Hello, welcome to another cloud computing class. Today we will use ZeroMQ, that is a messaging system, to develop our distributed computing system applications. Alright, so let's start. The first thing for me, it will be to go to my Google Cloud platform and create a new VM. So I will create a new VM just to run today's tutorial. So go here and create a new VM. The new instance, in our case, it will be as usual. I will call it lab6 VM and it will be in US Central 1. I will change my operating system to Ubuntu and I will increase the size of my disk to 20 GB. That should be enough. Now let's create this one, but also let's allow the HTTP traffic and also the HTTPS. So let's open these two firewall rules. One thing that we will also explore today is the way for us to open the ports so our application can talk to other ports rather than port 80, for example, we used in the past. So go to the VPC, so Virtual Private Networks, click here. While our VM is created, I will go and create a new firewall rule. So I will create firewall rules in order to allow access to our VM instance in particular ports. So go here and add a name. I will say lab6 rules. Then just the network, just leave it default. Priority, you don't need to change anything here. The only thing we need to do is to go here and change the specified targets to the all instances in the network. So I will open all the instances in the network, and alternatively I can create tags and I can assign tags to images, so I can actually limit access to different ports. So I will add here 0.0.0.0 and /0, and that should be fine. This is the range of the IP addresses. So this will support all the range of the IP address that we have. Here I will say which ports I want to open. So for this example, today I will open 555, 556, 557 and 5558. This should be enough. If I want to add more ports here, I will come back and add more ports. Alright, so let's create this rule. And this rule again will allow me to access different ports in my instance. I have to go to the GCP and say, I need access to these ports. Now, let's go back to the compute, and hopefully by now my image should be ready. So let's see here. Alright, so the lab6 VM is ready. I can connect to this VM using SSH. I will do that in my case. Or I can use the Visual Studio Code. So it's really up to you to decide what is the best for you. For my case, I will just go for a SSH connection. I will open also my tutorial here, so I will follow step by step here the tutorial, and make sure that while you are doing this tutorial you are copying and pasting correctly. Okay, so don't do any mistakes. If we're using the terminal, we have to be very careful. In the Visual Studio Code, I think it should be much easier for me to control the situation that I have to add a lot of text and code. Right, so today we'll explore different patterns of communication. The first pattern is what we call the pair between a client and the server. So a client will only connect to a server and the server will accept connection only from this particular client. You cannot have two client instances connected to the server. So this is a pair connection. The second connection that we'll try is this one, to have multiple clients talking to one server. The third one is the one that we have here, the publish subscribe. So where publishers generate data and subscribers connect and extract data. The fourth one is what we call the pull and pull socket, where it's actually a pipeline of steps. So we have a lot of consumers consuming data from publishers, but in this case the data actually going down to the downstream to another collector. So imagine you generate data, you collect this data, and then the results of this data you push it to another step. This is what we call the push and pull pipeline. Now, I will start with my with my Python. So in this VM, I will set up everything in this VM. So I need to make sure I install Python. I need to install this PyZMQ, that is my 0MQ library for Python. So first of all, I will update my VM as usual. So sudo apt update. I can easily, if you like, you can copy and paste from here, just to make sure you don't have any typos. So I install here the software properties common, that is a package that I need for Python 3. I will install Python 3. I will say yes here. And then I will go and install this PIP package that will help me actually to install the 0MQ. So after these 5 steps, I should be ready to start developing my code. Now the code today will be in Python, and we'll use Python in order to use this PyZMQ library to create our messaging patterns. So it will take a minute for us to have this ready, and then we can continue. While this is installing, just you can copy this to have it ready, and also we can start considering the first step. So let me just install the last library, this PyZMQ, and I think now it should be ready. Now make sure here you don't have any errors or you don't have any issues while you are installing this. So if you follow this tutorial, you should be fine. Clear your screen, and let's go here on the left side, and let's see the first code. Now the first one, it will be this pair connection between a client and a server. So let me create a server. I will call the server pair server.py. So I will use Pico in this case, and I will make sure that I only change here the address of this server. So this server actually hears at one address, and this is the internal VM address. So if you go here, find your lab 6 VM in my case, and copy the internal address so you have it ready, and go back here. And the only thing you have to do is to update this internal VM address with the new one. Okay, this is the address again of your VM, but make sure you add the internal and not the external IP. So I will just have to add here my address, right? So I have to do this. So in any case, let me take my code from here, go back to my terminal window that I have the Pico ready for me, and let me just go here in the TCP IP and just make it to the new internal address that I have in my virtual machine. Now this could be a little bit tricky because we always need to do this manually, but during this tutorial I will show you a way to manage this better. So let's save this, Ctrl S, Ctrl X, and the server is ready. So let me bring again back my tutorial. Now, so I have my server, and this server runs at port 5555 that already opened, so I should be able to connect here. Let me also prepare my client now. So per client. The client, in this case, it will connect to the server in this particular port, and in my case, what I will do, I will send a message that says hello world from the client. So again, just copy everything and paste it here, and also make sure you change the internal IP address of your code here. So go here, TCP internal IP, and let's change this again, just to make sure that I already have the 5555 connecting a server, and now we'll connect as client. All right, so let's save this, Ctrl S, Ctrl X. All right. So let me go back to the tutorial just to clarify here what we have. We have a server. The server accepts a pair, so you can see here it's a pair. And the server address is this one, runs at port 5555. And then the server, the only thing it does, it says server message to client. Okay, sends a message to the client, and then receives messages from the client and prints these messages to the server. Okay, while the client, that is another program, connects to the server. Okay. And here we have a while loop, and we say, I will send 10 hello client messages, and then I will stop. So it's like continuously sending messages just to simulate, let's say, a user sending messages to the server. And the server will print these messages, will say, hello from client, and this is a message came to the server. Here also have the time slip. The time slip means that the server will receive the messages while the client always will wait for a second. So I don't receive all the bats in the same time. I just wait 1 second each time I send a message from the client to the server. So it's actually this 1 means 1 second. I can make it 2 or 5, whatever you like. It's the time instance to control this while loop. Okay, so I have my server and I have my client. So what I have to do, let me open another window here and let me put this window here. And so what I have 2 SSH windows now. The left window, I will run my server. On the right window, I will run my client. The client will connect and send data. Now, since we have the same VM, just one VM for this example, we can run everything locally in our VM. But imagine you can have 2 VMs and they can easily communicate with each other. Right, so let's do this. What we'll do here, let me just organize a little bit my space. So I will say here Python 3 start the server. Okay, now the server starts. We don't see any messages. Probably we should print something like the server started and waiting for connections. And here I will go and I will say, okay, let's run the client. Okay, so Python 3 per client. Now, if I press enter here, I will start seeing some action in the server. So the client every second send a message and say, server message to client, and we can see the counters. And here are the messages coming to my server. All right. This was a per connection, and now this is completed. This means that this server will not accept any more connections from any other clients. Just one client at this port. Okay, so let's go here and let's stop our server. So Control X or Control C to break it, whatever you like. Now I will just go back to my tutorial, and we just run the pair. Okay, so Control C to break it. One thing that we need to do when we finish this is to clear the TCP port. Since the server is running at this port, we lock the port. So make sure you run this command to clean the port that we use for the server. So let's run this, and yeah, it should be fine. Okay. Now I will continue to the next step. The next step of my tutorial is to have multiple clients to one server. That's the most typical scenario for me. So what I will do again, I will go here on my left side. I will create my screen. Just select one of the 2 windows that you have, and let's add here the server. So the server name is repserver.py. So I will use the same name just to make sure we have the same name. Here I will copy the code again one more time, and I will go through the code in a second, but only thing I have to do is make sure you update your internal VM address. One more time I have to do this manually, so delete this one and just add this internal address here. If you like, you can keep a copy of this address somewhere in a text pad, so you don't have to go always back to your GCP and just take it from there. I think it's fine. Again, this port it will here at 5555. Here what we do, we create a server, but this server now is not a pair, it's a rep. A rep means reply. It's like a response will come back to the client. So save, and here Control S, Control X, and my server is ready. Okay, let's create a client. So let's copy the code for the client, and let's create the client, rep client. In my case, I will call it client 1 because I want to have multiple clients in the scenario. So Control V, and we have here our client. Now let's again one more time, and we need to update the internal VM address to the address of my VM. Again, the internal address. Okay, so what I will do here, let me just do it like that. Just add it here, and again make sure that the server IP is correct and the port is 45, so that's fine. Okay, save it and exit. Now, as you can see, if you go back to the tutorial, the server accepts connections in this kind of rep. Okay, And then the client, what it does, the client sends a message to the server and it says, you know, I'm client 1. All right. Okay, why we don't create another client? So let's make it client. In my case, I will make client 1, I will make it client 2. All right, I think copy, yes, copy client 1. I forgot to say which one I want to copy. Copy client 1, and call it client 2. All right, so you have to say which file you want to copy to which file. All right, so client 2 is ready. So let me edit this file, client 2. And here, since I already changed my IP address, I'm fine. I will only change, you know, I will say this is client 2, it's not client 1 anymore. And here is client 2, just a small configuration here, just to clarify that this is a different client. Control S, Control X. So I have 2 clients, 1 server. All right, so what I need, first, let me clear the screen. First, let me start the server. The server is called rep server. All right. Sorry, I think I should have it Python 3. There is a way to change to the path, so Python can actually, you can use Python instead of Python 3. But okay, for this tutorial, it's fine. Python should be fine. Now, Python 3 rep server py, and this server is running. Again, I don't see anything here. Probably again, I should have a message. I have my clients now, right? I need 2 clients. So I have one window here, and I will clear it. So why don't have another window? All right, so I have another window here. Now make sure here now you have 3 windows in this case, because the first window is the server, you can see here, and the clients are here. So I can just organize a little bit my space, make sure that you reduce the size of the windows to fit your screen. And yeah, all right, I have 2 extra windows for my clients. So let's go here and let's say Python 3 rep client, start client 1, okay, and here I don't press enter yet, and here Python 3 rep client 2. Okay, so I have my 2 clients ready. Okay, let's go for it. Press enter in the first and press enter in the second. While you are doing this, you can see here what is happening, right? Message is coming from different clients, and the server actually replies back to my client. So this is a one server to many clients connection. And this is the most typical scenario where you have, let's say, one main server and all the clients connect and do their stuff. Now, everything finished and the client actually completed, and my server is now finally here waiting for more connections, right? So if I go here and probably rerun this, I will see more things coming here. So this means that start as many clients as you want. That's a different scenario compared to the one that we just saw with the pair, where you have only one server for one client. Okay, I have my windows here. I know it's a little bit messy, but I was able to control the situation and understand that, you know, that I have 2 clients connected to one server. Okay, let's do this. Let's break this, Control C. Let's clear the ports, and I can go here and clear the port. This is the command one more time. The server is at 55555, so clear the port. All right. So I'm ready to go to my next step. My next step, it will be to pair servers and clients together in the scenario where we have this publish subscribe pattern. So what we have here, we have 2, let's say, servers and 1 client, and the client connects to the servers and gets some data. Here the scenario is that we have a server running at port 5555 and a server that runs at port 5556, so we have 2 different ports. The client connects to both servers and extracts specific data. The assumption is that the servers are sensors that generate data, and every sensor generates, for example, data for specific postcodes. Our goal is our consumer, right, or our subscriber, to subscribe only to data from New York. So again, the 2 servers will generate weather data with some postcodes, and then the client will actually connect to both servers and say, you know, I expect data, please give me data only for this postcode that is New York. So we extract specific data from our servers. But I can have multiple servers. For example, I can have multiple sensors in New York, and I can be subscribed to take data from different sensors. So in this scenario again, I will need 3 windows. What I will do, first of all, I will clear my screens and all these 3 screens. Now I have it in front of me. I will try to reorganize a little bit my space here, as much as I can actually. I don't have too much space. Alright, so let's start with the server. So I will create something that is called publish server. Okay, this pub server, and then I will have my pub client. Alright, and I will see how I can start different servers and different ports. Now, since we have to reuse again and again the same server, because the server has the same functionality, always generates some data, right? It's the same, let's say it's the same type of sensor. What I have to do is to use this SYS, or the system library from Python, to collect data from the command line. So instead of going there and hard-coded all my IPs or ports, I can pass this data from the command line. So this is what I will do. Let's see how this works. First of all, let's select the server data. Okay, so select this code for the server. My server will called, let me see here, it's called pub server, so I will call it pub server.py. This is my server. Enter. Let's paste the code here, and I don't really need to change anything in this code. As you can see here, the IP and the port is not anymore hard-coded. These are coming as arguments from my command line. Save it, Ctrl-S, Ctrl-X. Okay, my server is ready. And again, I did this trick with the command line that I will see how we'll deal with this in a second. Now, let's create the client. Okay, let's make the client. Let's copy all this and we'll talk about the client in a second. So pico pub client.py, press enter, and then add here the code. Again, here I don't really need to change anything. One thing I have to check is that I am subscribed to a topic that has this particular postcode 10,001, and that's the postcode, for example, from New York City. If I want to connect to different city, well, we can change this, adapt this as we like. Now, save this, Ctrl-S, Ctrl-X. Okay, so let's see how we can run this. So for this example, again, I need 3 windows. So one window is here, one window is here, and let me find my 3rd window. It should be somewhere here. There you go. In this case, I need 3 windows, and 3 windows means that I have, in this case, 2 servers and 1 client. So in other words, I have 2 publishers and 1 subscriber. But the subscriber subscribes only to specific data. Okay, let's see how we'll run this. Now, you have to say here Python 3, the name of your server, pub server. Okay, then we expect to have the IP address, because we say we'll pass it here by as an argument. So you can see I go back to my GCP and copy this. Now bring all these windows again in front of you. Okay, paste it here, and the port of this IP address. So the first server will run at port 5555. Okay, I will not run it yet. I will just organize my scripts here. Okay, so this is the first server. Let me take the second server. The second server will be the same, but it will run a different port, because actually it's the same code. By this way, I don't have to, edit files and create copies of the files. I can just start as many instances of the same server on different ports. Okay, that's my servers. And here I have my client. So Python 3 pub client, and the client again will connect to this IP address, and it will connect to both servers. So 555, 5556. Alright, so here the client accepts 3 arguments. The servers accepts 2 arguments. If I go back to my tutorial, I will see here that I start my servers and my clients. Now, I will go here just to make sure and give it a go to see if it works. Alright, give it a go here to see if it works. So what is happening is that the first server generates some data, alright, with different numbers, and some, assumingly we have some temperature values. The same applies for the second server. Now, if I start my client, I will wait for data for topic 10,001. You can see here, whenever there is a 10,001, I receive data. For example, here there was minus 66, I receive minus 66. I will wait for data coming to my subscriber. So this is the famous publish-subscribe model, where publishers generate data, subscribers collect data. As you can see in the script here, I have a small loop for 10 records that I want to extract data, and this will run for 10 records. If you want, you can run this with a while loop, and this will run forever. This means that you will always receive data from your publishers until you finish for some reason. Okay, so that's the example of running one client connecting to multiple servers, and these two servers in my case are my publishers. Let's stop them. Control-C and Control-C. Let's clear the ports. Now we run two different publishers, and one is port 555 and the second is at port 5556. Okay, that's the example of this publish-subscribe model. All right, a little bit of coding here. Please go through this text and you will just read my comments and probably will get an understanding of how you develop the code here. Now, the final case is phase 4, is where we will run this push and pull pipeline. All right, let's see how we can do this. We will have consumers in the middle, and we'll have producers on the left side, collectors on the right side. The producers will generate data, the consumers will collect data, filter the data, and send it downstream to the collector. Collector will actually take a decision, for example, store the data or not. That's an example of a push and pull pipeline. So let's see how we can do this. First of all, let's go here and clear our screens. So clear our screen, and clear our screen. For this example, we will need 4 windows. We'll have, as we have here, we will have 1 producer, 2 consumers. You can add as many as you like, but I will add just 2, and 1 collector. And the collector will collect again the data. So let's go back and let's open a new window. And in this case, I will just organize my space now. Let's see how I can do that. So here I have all my windows, and I have, as you can see, 4 different windows. Okay, and I will try to create here the flow, so it will look like a pipeline, and probably I will get a picture of this when I run it, just to look like a pipeline similar to the diagram I have in the lab tutorial. Okay, so here is my producer, assumingly my 2 clients, and here is my collector. All right, let's do this. First of all, let's go back to my tutorial. Here we have the code for the producer. So what I will do, I will copy the producer, all this code. Again, here I didn't add any kind of arguments. I just go back to the hard-coded stuff. Let's focus now on the code. You can easily go and adapt this. It's just basic Python scripting here. So let's create the first script, and this is the producer.py. So producer, make sure you don't have any typos, producer.py. Enter. Okay, paste the script here, and let's go and adjust the script. What we need here, the only thing we need to do is to change the internal IP address. So go here and, okay, let's do this. Let's find the IP address again one more time. All right. Okay. And let's update the IP address. So let's add it here. So I have the port 5555 to this particular IP address. Okay. Let's save this. Good. I have my server. Okay. What we call also a producer. Control-S, Control-X. Producer is ready. Okay. Let's again reorganize by window. Here I have my producer, here I will add my consumers, and here I will add my collector. Let's create the consumer. Let me copy this from the consumer, and let me again create the consumer now. Consumer.py. Paste the code here, and again, make sure you adjust the internal IP address. So I will just go back to my Google Cloud. It should be somewhere here. VM instances, okay. And I will just copy this one more time, go back here and change this to my new internal IP. All right, again, Control S, Control X. Now I have the consumer. I don't need to make a copy of the consumer. The consumer is just one code, one script that we'll use again and again. We can run it as many times as we like. That's fine, all right? Now let's go and create the collector. And then we'll see all the logic again one more time before we run it. So pico collector.py. Let's paste this one. And one more time, what we need here is the IP address of our VM. So again, copy this. This is why I say it's a good idea to store it somewhere, so you don't have to go back again and again. And change the internal IP address of this one. Okay, update this, and that's fine. Control S, Control X. All right, so let's see what we have here. We have, let me just organize a little bit my space. We have, again, the producer, the produced data. The producer is at port 5555. We have the consumers that collect data from port 5555 and export results to port 5556, as you can see here. All right, it's here actually. And then the collector collects data. Now, one thing that I forgot to do is to update the consumer correctly, because as you can see, we have two IP addresses to update. The IP address of the producer and the IP address of the collector. So let's go here. Let's change this one more time. So this is why it's a good idea always to be a little bit careful and revise the code before you run it. Okay, so copy the IP address and make sure you change to both places. All right, Control S, Control X. Okay, I think we're ready now. So let's start as we say here. Let's see how we say. We say first, let's start the collector. I start the collector. Python 3 collector.py. All right, collector, it looks to run because I don't see any errors. Then let's start the consumers. Python 3 consumer. Okay, and it says here I'm a consumer. Okay, that's fine. Python 3 consumer. This is another consumer. Great. And here now the last step is to start the producer. Now let me minimize the window and try to organize a little bit to see the results. All right, let's see how I can do this. So ideally what it will happen is that when the producer starts, the consumers will collect data and will push it downstream to the collector. The collector will show the data. All right, so this is a case of two consumers, one producer and one collector. Let's do this. Python 3 producer.py. There you go. I run it. And let's see what's happening. The producer generates data, the consumers receive data, and here the data is coming back to my collector. All right, so my collector was able to collect all this data, and actually you can see here aggregates the data from both cases. Now you can add more logic here. You can decide what kind of data you want to generate, or assumingly that these are, let's say, producer data for a use case that you have, you can collect the data in the collectors and filter the data and store the data, or provide the data to the collector. The collector will actually do something with the data, right? Maybe do some kind of analytics. And that's a simple example of how to create a producer with two consumers and a collector. Again, we can have as many consumers as we want here. Just to make sure here, we break this, Control C, and here Control C. The server is already stopped, so that's fine. We can also need here, just to make sure if we want to continue running things, make sure you clear the ports, and the code to clear the ports is this one. You can just run wherever you like because we're in the same VM. Make sure you clean the ports before you finish. All right. Now, again, let me go back to my scripting here. The code, just to go through this together, is that the producer runs at this particular port, generates a random number between 1 and 5. Then the consumer collects the data, and you have also, some formatting here, for example, consumer ID. And then the collector, at the end of the day, collects the data and summarize the data. You can see here how this works. Just go through this code and probably you will get a picture of how the collector, what is the functionality of the collector in this case. Okay, I think that would be all for this ZeroMQ tutorial. I hope it's more clear now how communication is happening in distributed systems. Usually we use this kind of software. In our case, we play around with this totally distributed solution of ZeroMQ, where we can create these different patterns of communication. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in our next session.